The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello, welcome back to the Paracave Podcast. This is a replay chat of the talk that I had with the Duckman on Pulse FM, 89.9 FM, and we cover the NRL All Stars game that was played this week, probably the unofficial start of the NRL season. It's the first major game that's played every year, and when that comes around, you know that rugby league premiership football is not too far around the corner. So on that same weekend as well, the Charity Shield is played, and that used to be the unofficial start to the rugby league season, but the NRL All Stars game has taken over, so we talk a little bit about that, and we also do something really interesting. We do a Indigenous All Stars side and also a NRL All Stars side, and look, the only criteria that we had in this was that the players had to play between 1986 and 2010, and like the old system of the All-Stars, one player from each club, only one player from a club could be selected to play in those teams. So what I mean by that is you couldn't have, say for example, the Indigenous All-Stars side, you can't have two, say, Brisbane players in that same squad. Now, the only exemption is that your captain of each side could be a player from the same club of another player. So, for example, I'll use Brisbane again. So, you could have one player in a position in the side from Brisbane, and you could also have a player in another position who is the captain of that side, also from Brisbane. So two Brisbane players in that side. So we picked that side. So a little bit of discussion about that one as well, which is quite interesting. The Duckman picked his side, I picked mine as well. And look, if you enjoy this episode, let me know, and I may even go more in depth with the teams that I picked as well. I think that might be a little bit of an interesting little podcast. So I'll put that out on the Instagram broadcast channel and see if you guys, the listeners, would like something more in depth on those sides as well. So a little bit of an interesting chat. So look, it was a long podcast or long chat I had with him live on radio. So I'll stop talking now and I'll hand over to the Duckman, and hope you enjoy this episode, a replay chat of the talk that I had with the Duckman on Pulse FM, the Weekend Sports Wrap on Pulse FM, 89.9 FM on a Sunday night. And now it is over to you, Duckman.
All right, welcome back to the Weekend Sports Wrap. So you're here with the Duckman, and got Troy Warner on for the second time this year from the Paracave Podcast. Troy, how are you going?
I'm going fantastic, Duckman. It's great to be back on for the second time this year, and it's getting closer and closer to NRL season 2024 kickoff with those two massive games in Las Vegas, but the trial games are on now, so footy is back.
Yeah, 100%. So I didn't want to do a cricket situation and saturate too much rugby league before the season, because I just cannot conscionably talk about cricket non-stop through winter. It's going to do my head in this year. So I'll only talk about games Australia are in if they're major games. If they haven't T20 or pajama cricket, which I'm going to have to start calling it, because it's just, there's so much of it. It's lost its significance a fair bit to me now. Test matches I'll cover, major international events I'll cover. Other than that, I just can't do it right. It's doing my head in now. But back on Friday. Now, I didn't know this game was happening this weekend. By the way, I was sitting at the gym and I could hear the haka and like, where's that coming from? Hang on, someone's playing some sort of Maori music or something on the loudspeaker through the gym, and just had a look up on TV and someone changed it from whatever maps or whatever was on to the footy had gone. What's going on here? I went, it's the Indigenous All Stars game. So I realised all of a sudden what was happening. I went, I didn't even know it was on. So caught me by surprise, to be honest with you. But the Indigenous All Stars won 22-14 in, I thought the game was a pretty good game, but a lot of people have canned it. What's going on with that?
Yeah, look, I'm not too sure. Maybe it was just because it was the first real hit out for a lot of these players of the season. Maybe the humidity as well always plays a part up in Townsville, especially being the first game of the year for a lot of these players, if not all of them. And yeah, I guess that they may be thinking about that. But it's always a good spectacle, I think, the All-Stars game, and a good way to... You know footy is back when this game is on. It's the first real official sort of game of rugby league for the season, and both sides do great things during the week in the communities, and yeah, it's a great spectacle. And I think the way that we have it now between the Indigenous side and the Maori side is probably the better way to do it. I did put out a tweet the other day, should we go back to maybe the Indigenous side playing an All-Stars side, but I think this gives players of those heritages a chance to represent their people and their culture, so I think this is the right formula.
Oh, definitely. So we'll run through the lineup quickly. I've got it here in front of me. So the Indigenous All-Star side had Latrell. Who was their captain? Was Latrell the captain?
Yeah, first time. Big honour for Latrell, and I think he came out and said that this is probably one of the biggest honours for him in rugby league at the moment, captaining this Indigenous All-Stars side. So, yeah, first time winner. And an interesting stat that I think it was the last 4 times a Rabbitohs captain of the Indigenous side, if there's been a Rabbitohs captain of the Indigenous side, the last 4 times they've won.
Yeah, there you go. It's pretty significant. So we'll go through the lineup. Latrell at fullback there, Josh Adokar on the wing with what's going on with his haircut, I don't know either. Got the Hammer in the centre there, Hamiso Tabai Fido at centre along Katoni Staggs. Alafino Khan Pereira. Who's he play for?
Gold Coast Titans. So his rookie year last year, scored a ton of tries. So it'd be exciting to see how he goes this year.
Yeah, so he's right place at the right time with Des Hasler there. So we'll see if Des can bring out the best in him. Braden Trindle was 5'8". Nico Hines was number 7 there. Shakwa Mitchell. So that's Latrell's younger brother, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. So he's playing prop. Kieran Mosley was hooker, Josh Kerr, number 10, Adam Elliott, 11, so I didn't know he was Indigenous. Josh Curran, he's got like the world's biggest mullet, seriously. It looks like it's someone got some hair extensions and stuck it on. It's that big, it's massive, bro. Jermaine Hopgood played number 13, Bailey Butler, 14, Brian Kelly, 15, Hahipa Peru, 16, and Bailey Biondi Odo played 17. So I had Zach Fulton, Jordan Grant, and Kyle Labut on the bench for the Indigenous side. So what do you make of that side before we go into the New Zealand Maori side?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a pretty strong side. Obviously, there's not a lot of surprises there, I don't think. I think a lot of these players are returning players to the Indigenous side. I think it could be Braden Trindle's first Indigenous game, and he actually got player of the match, so congratulations to him. But yeah, look, it's a fairly solid squad. I think probably the back line is probably the better part of that side. That's not to say that the forwards aren't good players, but I just think in that team, I think probably the back line really stands out. Some champion players there, premiership winners, also Origin players as well.
No, 100%. They're a superstar backline. And New Zealand Maori side look like this, and they're not any lesser players. They're just not as good as some of the superstars in the sub-team. Jesse Arthurs was number 1, had Jojo Fafita number 2, Dane Gagai number 3, Matthew Tomoko number 4, Adam Pompey 5, Cody Nicarima 6, Jerome Hughes number 7. Was he the captain? Had Leo Thompson prop there, Brandon Smith the hectic cheese in a hooker, Xavier Willison. He was named at 16 and he come into start prop, so someone's pulled out. Britton Nakora at lock there with Kenny Bromwich and Joseph Tapwine. So Joseph Tapwine, I still love it. That hit that he put on last year.
Reece Walsh?
Yeah, Reece Walsh. When Reece Walsh just pulled up, that's the best. That's kicked off that fight. I thought that was handbags and 10.
But I must say too, though, credit to Reece Walsh. He did come out and say, well, it was fair play because the game was still going. So it was his fault that he got smashed.
Yeah, that's right. So you got to play till, that's what I say, play till the final whistle. If you want to take a bit of a dead or soft tackle, some players have done it in the past and people just like go into a bit of a hug. Well, why not put one on your highlights reel and just nail someone? I would be doing it. On the bench, they have Royce Hunt, Jazz Tavega, Trey Mooney, Dylan Walker, so it's no surprise there. Tamira Martin was on the bench as well, Jack Howarth and Keenan Palacia. And Adam Blair was the coach. So what do you make of that? That's a good side. That's a really good side with a lot of good young guys coming through. And we're going to see some of these guys be exceptional for their clubs this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think with this team, my personal opinion is I think their forward pack is probably better than their back line. So complete opposite to the Indigenous side. I think that's probably a lot stronger forward pack than the Indigenous side. But Joseph Tarpany, probably one of the best front rowers in the game, played lock in this game. I think captained the side as well. So there's some exciting young players. Leo Thompson from the Newcastle Knights. He made his international debut for New Zealand last year in the Pacific Championships. Obviously Matt Timoko, he's an exciting centre from Canberra as well. He made his international debut last year too. So look, there's some good players in that side. I think this is the second year in a row that they've gone down to the Indigenous side. So they'll potentially be looking at some changes for next year and just trying to get that win back and get that trophy back.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of pride in it. A good thing is they're competitive and one side's not just dominating. That would be that would be the worst thing ever for that if one side just smoked the other team, and it happened regularly. If it was like that, the game will die off, right, because people will lose interest in it. But it's competitive. So it was first game of the year, so everyone's blowing out cobwebs. I don't think anyone had played any competitive matches, or probably not even, there were no official trial games beforehand. I'm not sure how many in-house games people have been playing. So everyone is blowing out cobwebs right there, not all up on par, and that's what you get. The scorers, Josh Adokar picked up 2 tries there for the Indigenous side. The Hammer got a try, and Khan Pereira picked up a try. Nico Hines got 3 out of 4, and for the Maori All Stars, Joseph Tapani got a try. Xavier Willison got a try. Cody Nicarima kicked the goal, and Dane Gagai and Cody Nicarima got a penalty as well. So it was a pretty good game overall. I thought it was all right while I was watching it. Jim, look what they're going end to end. It was very competitive, and that's what you want when you have these sorts of games.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned before, you definitely don't want a blowout score. It's no good for the game. And it was a very competitive game. And look, the Indigenous side, they pretty much sort of controlled most of the game. They did the early scoring, and then there was a late consolation try in the end to the Maori side, and made the score a little bit more respectable as well. 16-8 at half time. So there was still that 8-point gap at full time. So look, a great way to kick off the year. And the Indigenous women's side also got the win as well. So it was a double win for the Indigenous All Stars up there in Townsville. They won 26 points to 4 as well over the Maori side. So a little bit of a one-sided game in that one, but yeah, the Indigenous All Stars get the double.
Yeah, it is massive. So it's good that the women's sides also have teams like that to play for as well. I think Mahalia Murphy was playing in it from what I could work out. Looked like she was playing in it. If she wasn't, she's wearing a Parramatta gear and some Indigenous stuff somewhere. So out and about the other day, just went, what is going on here? Because like I said, I didn't realise it happening last weekend. Of course, happening this weekend coming up. But
yeah,
there
it
you
sort
go.
of does sneak up on you sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. Just completely out of sync with what's going on with everything rugby league. So let's have a look at our sides we picked. So you go through your side first, and then I'll go through my side. So
who do you want? Who would you like? Indigenous All Stars?
Yeah, do the Indigenous ones first. Yeah.
Okay. So at fullback, Matty Bowen from North Queensland.
Yeah.
On the wing or the wingers, I've gone for Dale Shearer. And I've gone for him when he played at the South Queensland Crushers. Not necessarily his form at the South Queensland Crushers, but he did play for them.
Yeah, I was looking at trying to fit him in like that too. He's one of the omissions from my side, but you'll hear it in a second.
Yeah, so some of these players I've picked from the clubs that they've played at, and not necessarily their best form at those clubs. So to fit them in the team, the other winger, Wendell Saylor from the Brisbane Broncos, the centres, Mal Meninga from Canberra, Steve Ella from Parramatta, the 5'8", Andrew Walker from St George. That's the old St George Dragons. The halfback, John Simon from the Warriors. He had a few clubs, John Simon. The front rowers, I've gone George Rose from when he had his time in Melbourne, and Craig Salvatore, who played for the Roosters and South.
For the Roosters, yeah.
He also played for South as well, but I've gone for him as a Roosters player. The second rowers, now I've gone Gordon Tallis. Now, I know I've already named a Brisbane and St George player, but I've named Gordon as captain. So he's a little bit exempt there. Rambo Ronnie Gibbs from the Gold Coast Giants back in the day. There could have been two players that I picked at lock, either Greg Bird or Daniel Wagon, but I've gone Greg Bird from Cronulla. And my bench is Preston Campbell from Penrith, Jeff Hardy from Illawarra, Ryan James, who started off his career in 2010, and he also did I think it was a COVID stint on loan to Canterbury, and another player who started in 2010, Andrew Fafita, who started off at the West Tigers. So in that group, I've had 4 podcast guests as well.
It's good. Who's your coach?
Look, obviously they can be from any club. I'll go Laurie Daly as a coach. How's that?
Yeah.
Indigenous coach. He has coached them before.
Yeah, that's all right. So I'll roll through my Indigenous side now, so it's a little bit different to yours. Number 1, David Peachy from Cronulla.
Yeah.
Number 2, Ricky Walford from St George. Number 3, Mal Meninga, and he's the captain as well, so from Canberra. Number 4, Greg Inglis at Melbourne Storm. Number 5, Steve Ella from Parramatta. So I was tossing up which one to play a winger and going, Steve Ella would probably be a winger with those two. Number 6, Laurie Daly, Canberra. Number 7, Jonathan Thurston, Bulldogs. So he was at Bulldogs for 7 years before, or actually 9 years before he won a premiership. But only probably 5 of those were actually in and around the first grade. So the rest of the time he was behind Brave and Asper. So he was there for a couple of years coming through. He was always going to have to leave the Bulldogs if he wanted to win premierships and play first grade football. He was just not going to do it behind Brave and Asper. Number 8, so this was where I started getting contentious in the forward pack, because I had to go, and if I pick this guy, I'm going to have to drop this guy and do all this other stuff. Number 8, Sam Backo, when he was at the Broncos.
Okay, yeah, I did have him on my list, yeah.
Yeah, number 9, Mal Cochran from Manly. Yeah. Number 10, Andrew Fafita from West Tigers, so that's what I want to make sure he was qualified into it, and he just had qualified into it.
Yep.
Number 11, this will spin you out a little bit. So Cliff Lyons, so he didn't play for Norths in 1986, but he had to be picked, right? And I was just going, I cannot leave the guy out. He did too much. So he's gone into second row with Scott Sattler when he played for the Gold Coast. So he's straight in. Yeah, Ian Russell, number 13 from Illawarra. So he was only a little bloke when he was playing lock at Illawarra, but he's good. Scott Prince pretty much deservedly got himself a spot, so but I picked it from when he was at the Cowboys. Preston Campbell come in number 15, so when he was at Penrith. Craig Salvatore got in the Roosters. I was trying to work out how am I going to get someone in here so from the Roosters. Just could not work it out. Owen Craigie got in. He was brilliant when he was at Newcastle. Then wheels fell off the bus, unfortunately for him. And Ronnie Gibbs, I carried an 18 player come in there, number 18, from what he did with Wests. And Arthur Beaton is the coach of that side. And I was going, how am I going to slot? Like he was picked like third, so I went, all right, he's got to be the coach. So he wasn't that successful when he was coach at Roosters either, but he had more of a significant time there coaching. I mean, he did other places, but I had other choices. Like PJ Marsh, how and where was it going to fit him in? So who was it going to drop for it? So potentially Owen Craigie, but Owen Craigie in the end of his career got chunky, and I thought he could maybe play in the second row positions. Carl Webb, I just couldn't fit him in, right? Gordon Tallis couldn't make it happen. Going, if we're fair income about it, if we're doing this properly, you just got to be serious about it.
It's very difficult, but I must say Cliff Lyons at second row. I don't know about that one. I'd love to see that one. I did actually forget to mention my hooker. I did have PJ Marsh and Dennis Moran, but then I ended up going with Mal Cochran, like yourself, from Manly.
Yeah, so that's not too bad. Who's in your All-Stars team?
Okay, so what I've tried to do with my All-Stars team is I've tried to base it off like the Indigenous side podcast guests. So at fullback, I've got Tim Brasher from North Queensland. I've got Brett Mullins from the Roosters, Daryl Halligan from North Sydney, Michael O'Connor from Manly, Andrew Eddingshausen from Cronulla. Now, my halves combination is what I reckon is probably the best halves combination that we've ever seen. I've got Brett Kenny at Parramatta, and I've also gone Peter Sterling at Parramatta as the captain. Joel Clinton and Paul Harrigan. Joel Clinton from Brisbane, Paul Harrigan obviously Newcastle. I've gone Cameron Smith from Melbourne. In the second row, I've gone Paul Sirenen from Balmain, and I've put Brad Clyde in when he played at Canterbury. I would have loved to have had Hindy in there, but I've already got Sterlo and Brett Kenny. My lock is Brad Fittler from Penrith. My bench is David Gillespie from Western Suburbs, Dean Witters from South, Peter Johnston from Illawarra, and Big MG from the Western Reds. So a total of 13 out of 17 podcast guests.
Yeah, there you go. Who you picking for the coach for that side?
Look, I'll go Jack Gibson then on that front as the All Stars coach.
I was thinking about that, and I go, he doesn't really hit the criteria for the coaching thing. He did coach New South Wales at the time. I did coach Cronulla, so
he did coach Cronulla in I think 88. I think.
Yeah, 2 years before Alan Fitzgibbon in and around. So after someone and before, I forget who came in after him. So it was either just before or just after Alan Fitzgibbon coached at Cronulla. So right about that. So I'll go through my side. This is where it's contentious, right?
I'm waiting. And the listeners, they're waiting.
Number 1, Neil Baker from Souths. So had to pick a field goal expert because this one's going to go close, I reckon.
That must have been tough for you to choose him or Bronco Dejura.
Yeah, no, don't worry. He was getting tossed up for a bench spot there. Bronco was trying to work out how to fit him in. Alan McIndoe on the wing for Illawarra. Yeah, got Andrew Eddinghausen for Cronulla. So Brett Kenny. So I was stuck in a centre position. I was tossing up between Brett Kenny at Parramatta or Jared McCracken when he played for Canterbury because he was a beast at Canterbury.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking long term, Brett Kenny just did more. So that's how he got in. Darryl Halligan was a winger when he was playing with Norths. Wally Lewis is the captain and the 5'8" there. So Greg Alexander was halfback. They actually played together, strangely enough, in a couple of tests. So I think that worked all right. And Wally Lewis picked himself right because people say he's the king. He was the king of dominating games, right? So he wasn't necessarily the most skilled player ever, but he just won games. So like even outside of State of Origin, he could win games on his own. Watched him do it in test matches, and he was a tough bloke, and just good to see what he could do. Glenn Lazarus, when he played for Melbourne Storm at prop. So here's one of the bones of contention along with Neil Baker. So Billy Johnston at hooker.
Okay.
At the big from Gold Coast. Steve Roach prop for Balmain. Steve Menzies, so the back three here, they're pretty much picking themselves. Steve Menzies lock there, or second row for Manly. Ben Kennedy lock there for Newcastle, and Bradley Clyde for Canberra. So Ben Kennedy was too good to leave out the side, and I was thinking, if I pick him, Joey's going to miss out. And I was thinking, if I pick Ben Kennedy for Manly, Steve Menzies misses out, and both of them would fit in. I'm just going, this is just not going to work, right? So there's unfortunately there's casualties along the way of picking these things. Bradley Clyde, I did pick him in at lock there, so from Canberra. Darren Lockyer on the bench, number 14 for Brisbane. Peter Kelly when he played for Canterbury at number 15 there. Gareth Ellis, and I picked him for West Tigers because I think what he did, he is still, in my opinion, so because I never saw Mal Riley play or any of that sort of stuff in the 70s. I've never seen highlights of Mal Riley play. But from the English players I've seen, I reckon Gareth Ellis is probably the most influential English forward that's come out, even more so than Adrian Morley, right? So Adrian Morley went into a very
Sam
good team.
Burgess?
He's average. So I think he'd struggle to get in the side. So
interesting.
He was all right, but he was never going to usurp Neil Baker, so it was never really a question. But Gareth Ellis definitely in the top three. So English forwards that I've ever seen, right? It was extraordinary. That's why since he's left West Tigers, the wheels have fallen off their bus because they've got no one like that plays like him. And Ruben Wiki is the same sort of player. He got picked there playing for the Warriors. So he could have got picked for about 7 different clubs because he's played for everybody. And the coach is Graham Murray when he could have picked for Illawarra or could have picked for North Queensland, but went for North Queensland for what he did. So
all the Roosters as well.
Well, we got the Roosters to their first grand final in like about 20-something years back in 2000 and then got the flick. So even though they made the grand final, so we'll figure that one out. So there's going to be people who want to pick that apart. If you don't like our teams, 0434 440 553, send through your team. So only criteria is can you pick one player per club for each side, except for the captains. When you pick a captain from a club, you can pick a supplementary player as well. So I'll say supplementary player loosely because Laurie Daly is not much of a lesser player than Mal Meninga. Instead, he could actually stand up on his own. And no doubt, the Wally Lewis one was hard to pick because as a player for what they did and skill-wise, I actually think what Darren Lockyer did at the Broncos was way much more significant than what Wally Lewis did. Wally Lewis was there at the end of his career and Darren Lockyer was there for his whole career. And Darren Lockyer was the best player in the world as a fullback, in my opinion, and the best player in the world at 5'8" once he changed to 5'8", and is the best at the world of both at the same time. So, and I don't think anybody else has been the best in two positions at the same time. At any time.
Here's a question off the cuff. Who are your goal kickers for your sides?
All right. So the goal kicker for the Indigenous side, because I missed the toe punting, is Ricky Walford. And the kicker for the All Stars is going to be Neil Baker. So, but yeah, we've got other options there. For the All Stars, like Darryl Halligan could be a kicker. And I've seen Peter Kelly try to kick a goal before, so that was a different experience, I can tell you. Greg Alexander can also kick, and for the All Stars side there as well, so you got Mal Meninga could toe punt him up there with the best. Mal Cochran could kick too. Craig Salvatore kicked a few. Preston could kick as well, but yeah. Probably be Ricky Walford realistically, or potentially Mao for the Indigenous side. So funny that looking at that. But and JT, I suppose he was like an average sort of kicker as well. He could kick a few as well. So
Well, I think it was a bit better than average, but yeah, look, if I had to go for goal kicker for my Indigenous side, if you're going to toe poker, I'll go Mal Meninga. But obviously Steve Ella kicked a few goals. I'm sure Andrew Walker did. I know John Simon did. As you mentioned, Craig Salvatore and Mel Cochrane as well. So could go those guys. For my All Stars side, well, look, you could go Michael O'Connor. You could go Darryl Halligan. I think they're probably the best two. Cameron Smith. I'd probably go Darryl Halligan.
Yeah, so I can tell you now, Cameron Smith was the first person I picked in the All-Stars team. So outside of like my bias, I like Neil Baker, so he was the second player I picked. But the actual first player I picked for the normal All-Stars team was Glenn Lazarus, because he's the only prop in the competition history in like 120 whatever years now, or nearly 120 years, that has won 3 premierships as a prop at 3 different clubs, being Canberra, Brisbane, and also Melbourne Storm. So I thought that was highly significant, and he was literally the first one picked out of nearly everybody from both sides. So,
yeah, probably is, because he doesn't get mentioned much as like as an immortal of the game, or in that conversation. But as you said, first player to win 3 premierships at 3 clubs in the same position, it's pretty outstanding.
Yeah, so that's just what made it hard to pick Cameron Smith. I just went, he did exceptional stuff in an exceptional team. Glenn Lazarus went to 3 clubs and did it, so including Melbourne in their second year. So that was just unbelievable stuff what he did there. So notable admissions, obviously Andrew Johns out of the All-Star side, that's a big one. But even probably a notable one that's less significant was Danny Lee, right? So I was really close to picking Danny Lee, but I had ET in the side. And that was because what he did at prop at Cronulla was extraordinary, because for like 4 or 5 years in a row, he actually led the tackle counts in the NRL. So I remember when they used to put the tackle counts up every year, week by week by week in Rugby League Week and the Big League mags. And he led it for years. He was in 1995. He was in one of the teams of the year or whatever, and that sort of stuff. So, and he's just an exceptional player, right? So it was really hard not to pick him.
Yeah.
Like it was really hard not to pick a couple of Indigenous players, but I set the rules. Like if we actually picked our best sides from that time period and removed all the years, I've got no doubt those sides would look vastly different. So. Even from 86 to 2010, if we picked the best sides we could possibly pick Indigenous and normal players, they would look different. So even if I took Neil Baker out and all that sort of stuff, like realistically, you'd have Darren Lockyer would be nearly a walk-in. So the alternatives there, you've got Gary Belcher, you've got Tim Brush, you've got Brett Mullins. Like how do you balance it out? Yeah, where are you going to pick these guys, right? So you can only pick one or two of them. So it was interesting. I like doing it. It was actually pretty good. So like I said, I do want to do another one before the comp starts, just on normal first grade players. So we'll use the same standards that we set there. So, but we won't do an Indigenous side. We'll just do normal players. So let's pick an NRL side from 1986 to 2010, and we'll just frame it up. So let's have a look. And
so like non-rep players?
Yeah. Non-state of origin, non-Australian players. Say like we'll try to pick the best sides we can out of that. So we'll do it for 2 eras, 86 to 2000, and 2000 to 2010, and see what they look like. So like I don't really know, because I haven't really pulled it apart and had a look at it that much, but got a bit of a framework there. So I'm pretty sure we're going to pick some interesting players in the side. So I've got some footy card pictures going in my head at the moment of players I could imagine being in the team, so that'd be interesting.
Well, look, I can give you an exclusive to that side for next week, and the listeners an exclusive. I'll give you one player. I'll pick David Woods from Parramatta.
Yeah. So yeah, he was a good centre. So I like David Woods. He was a solid player. So I like to think of guys like Scott Mahon, right? I was into Scott Mahon's hair, and Glenn Lydiard. He went to Cambridge Park for a while, so high school, and then went and played for went over and played in the UK before all of this stuff when he was 16 years old.
He played with his brother David, I think, in the same side, I think.
Yeah, it's right. So they did that. So, like, got all these sorts of players and not even thinking I've got, like, people like Carl McNamara from Penrith who play, like, 140-odd games and, rep games like Jimmy Smith. I G him up sometimes on SEN and that stuff. But he played 150 games, right, for West, South. I said if you had to play for North as well, it would have called you Compass because you played for all the points of Sydney. If you played for West, South and East and played in the UK, like, you played 150 games. You don't play 150 games because you're an average player. Then you got guys like John Morris, so he could have made it in.
Cole Vandervoort.
Yeah, 100%. There's guys all around the traps. Guys, so see, Ross Conlon even eliminates himself because he played State of Origin and that sort of stuff. So, like I said before the show, got guys like Brendan Hall that played for the Roosters and that sort of stuff. I'm wondering what that team would look like. So, it will be an interesting workaround, and we'll work all week on it, and we'll have a look what those teams look like because I genuinely want to see it. Now I want to see what you come up with and what I can come up with, but we pulled some out of the vault there anyway. So,
yeah, all right. So an NRL side, non-representative players.
Yeah, so Bronco Dura, I can tell you, Neil Baker might get another run here, and Bronco Dura, he will pretty much be getting a run too. So he'll be fitting in there somewhere. So
should we make it a criteria that you can't pick any of the players that we've already picked?
Oh yeah, all right, yeah, all right. So we pick no players that have been picked. That'll make it easier.
Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, so you're gone. You'll see you later. You're dusted off. So you're out of that. So Neil Baker, what did get in the side? So he's still the most significant player. So he was a decent fullback. So when he became the Penrith, he was getting towards the end of his career, unfortunately for him. Was kicking a lot of field goals and just generally a pretty good player. And the game changed because Tim Brash was coming through then at 18 and different running fullback and all that sort of stuff. But Neil Baker was pretty much the last guy that used to do kick and duels and the last player that kicked a significant amount of field goals, kicking 26 in one season in 1986 with South. That was very significant what he did there.
I'll tell you a funny story about kicking duels. I did a Instagram reel a couple of months ago about State of Origin kicking duels, Ricky Stewart, Laurie Daly, Dale Shearer, and it's just blown up. I've had something like 540,000 views of it about a kicking duel. Amazing.
Yeah, that's hilarious because I can think of one in particular Neil Baker had back in 1989. It was at Wynn Stadium with Steve Larder, and Steve Larder was pumping them up the field too. They're both fullbacks. There were 6 kicks in it, and then Neil Baker picked up, went, I'm running it now. So Penrith had it last tackle, kicked it downfield to Illawarra. And Neil Baker goes, no, you can have it back again. And all the players are just standing in the middle like, what's going on? So, and you could just see the dudes with their hands on their waist waiting to see what's going to happen. Then Neil Baker decided to run it when he got it back again, and there you go. So it was different because it was the TV game. So that's how I got to see it. I remember it being on Channel 10 and Graham Hughes and Bill Anderson and all this sort of stuff were commentating. So there's some blasts for the past for you. So
yeah, definitely.
Definitely looking forward to having a look at this and see what these sides look like. All right, so there's one major piece of NRL news that's come out today, so that I've seen. Not sure if you captured it yet. You hear about Jake Trbojevic.
Yeah, congratulations to Jake. He got engaged. Yeah,
so I was going to say, like, some would say it's a master stroke, and some would say that he's headed for certain doom and gloom. So it depends what camp you're on. So a lot of people are like, oh, he's sold out. So I don't know if he's sold out. So it looks comfortable. So I'd say the fact that he's just got engaged there and on the verge of getting married, he will probably secure up his future now with Manly as well. So they would like that he's getting a bit of stability there in his life too. So he's a kind of iconic player. So there's not many players you see now that spend the whole career at one club, but I imagine he's the kind of guy that you probably will see spend their whole career at one club. That's just not going to happen very much anymore in the future moving forward, I don't think, because football's too professional now. It's a business, and these guys are a commodity, and they need to look after their commodity as good as they can, save with their managers and everything like that.
Yeah, look, there's only a handful of players that will probably play for one club. I mean, I guess Nathan Cleary, he comes to mind as well. He probably will be a one club player with Penrith. You would think. Obviously, maybe both Jake and Tommy will be Manly players for their careers. But yeah, there wouldn't be very many other players, I wouldn't think, that I can think off the top of my head. Just these days with rugby league, obviously with the salary cap going up, salaries are going up as well. So it's a big decision for some of these star players to choose whether loyalty or a bigger pay packet. So you won't probably find a lot of players stay as a one club player these days pretty often. But yeah, congratulations to Jake and his now fiance Alex as well. So you never know, it might improve his footy this year, and no doubt he'll have to plan for possibly a November-December wedding, because I can't see it happening during the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be planning it before at least mid to late October, because if it falls on grand final day or grand final weekend, your missus is going to snap it if you make the grand final and you can't play. So you got to think Manly, I would say, probably they're still my hot tips to improve the most out of everybody in the NRL this year. So I expect they're probably going to finish 4th or 5th. So they're just going to miss out on the top 8. Not top 8, on the top 4. Either just make it or just miss out on the top 4. I'm still expecting Dominic Young got injured in the Roosters game too. I'm expecting the Roosters to fight it pretty hard this year. They're only going to go one or two ways. They're either going to get close to winning the comp, so finish first or second, or they're going to come in the bottom 5. So I'm sticking with that. So Roosters fans, if you don't like it, 0434 440 553, let me know. So what do you think the Roosters are going to come?
As well, I don't think the Duckman picked any Roosters players in his Indigenous or All Stars team either. I think maybe Craig Salvatore, I think, was the only one.
Yeah, Craig Salvatore is the only one there. So, other than that, if you don't like it, complain as well, 0434.
in saying that, a shout out to Dom Young as well. We hope that his recovery is quick and fast. The Roosters have come out and said that they took him to hospital yesterday just as a precautionary, so it probably looked a little bit worse than what it was, but it was just precautionary that they would take him to hospital on a stretcher in an ambulance. And as I said, the scenes didn't look too good of Dom Young playing his first game for his new club, being stretchered out to the ambulance. So our thoughts go with Dom and speedy recovery, and he'll want to be hoping that he recovers in time to go with his new club over to Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, he's the top try scorer of the comp last year too, so he is a red-hot commodity. I reckon he's got 20 tries in him again for sure. So I actually think the Roosters are more likely to be, if they make the top 4, I think they can definitely be a top 2 side. I just think they've got a few more things going for them now, particularly picking up Dominic Young, knowing that they're losing a couple of guys now to rugby next year, including my best mate, Joey Manu. So if he needs any help heading to the airport, hit me up, Joey, because I'm happy to help you, mate. So I won't be disappointed to see you leave. I'll only be disappointed if you end up in the Wallabies mix somehow, because I'm not sure you play rugby.
He'll play for the All Blacks.
He reckons if he comes and plays rugby union, he's going to play for the Wallabies. So
Joey
I hope
Manu?
that's not the case. Yep.
Okay, wow, that's an interesting one. I would have thought he would have played for the All Blacks.
Yeah, well, if he's good enough, so that's the first question. So, is he good enough? That'll be the other question, because they are a fair level above what he is. The position he would play in rugby union, if he played number 10, needs to bring a better kicking game than what he's got, because that's like a major kicking role. So, if Nathan Cleary played rugby union, he'd be a number 10. So, he wouldn't be a halfback. He'd be the guy receiving the ball and setting plays up out the backs, or having a major kicking role in the team, because that's the key thing there. So halfback in rugby union is just literally a ball distributor that can run a bit. So very, very different to rugby league.
And speaking of rugby union and All Blacks, it was great to see Roger Tuivasa-Sheck back in Warriors colours today in the trial game against the Tigers. So he's back in rugby league. So he's seen the light and come back and played his first game for the Warriors today against the Tigers. The Tigers actually got a win today, albeit only a trial game, but that'll give them confidence for the year. The thing about these trial games is it's all hit and miss at the moment because it's unlimited interchange, and teams do use a lot of players in these games. And I was at a Parramatta fan day this morning, and Coach Brad Arthur was talking, and they asked him about last night's result against Canberra. Parramatta went down to Canberra, and he said, look, it was obviously a disappointing result, but a lot of the players did look tired out there. But his point was to leave them on the field to go through that tiredness and try and find that extra step and that extra energy to pull through that. And he said that's what these trial games are used for stuff like that. So they're not... Look, they obviously want to win every game they play, but they're not too concerned about the result because they're trying to get those players to improve on the field in difficult situations.
Yeah, that's right. So the only way to really get fitness, so I've been training at the gym non-stop for 2 months, so 5 days a week. If I had to go out and play sport again, I'd still be blowing it out until you start running around because that's how you get that fitness up actually on the paddock. So doing extra bits and pieces of stuff. Am I improving my general fitness and overall and cardio? Yeah. Those guys doing it? Yeah. So when does it make the biggest difference? When you're on the field, because that's when you're playing the game. We'll bounce through the scores quickly, but because I'm interested in some of the scores there. Bulldogs took on Melbourne Storm back on Thursday, and the Bulldogs won 24-12, so they can write the Storm season off. They're done for the year now. So,
okay, Roosters and Storm are gone.
The Knights won 44-18 against Sharks. I said the Sharks have finished in the bottom 5. Still haven't been convinced that anything different than that. They are definitely going to be in the bottom 5. You just can't bet on them anymore. Since the Storm got done for salary cap treating, you can't bet on who comes last anymore, and you can't bet on teams that come in the bottom 4 or bottom 5. Like, I don't know why that is, but
you'd have money on the Roosters, the Sharks, and who's the other one?
The Storm will probably make the top 4 realistically. So apparently Ryan Pappenhausen came back and he was pretty good. So I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was good to see him come back. He scored a try as well, I think. And, especially after he suffered that serious injury up at Suncorp Stadium last season. Some people did have question marks about his return and whether he would return after another serious injury, but he was running around quite freely, scored a try, and good to see Paps back for the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what he needs. He just needs to get some consistency. He'll be completely out of touch, out of form, and he'll just need to work on his stamina and that stuff, and confidence. So he's got to really work on that. The Roosters, they got a 36-22 win against the Seagulls there. So that's not a bad result there for the Roosters. They're gonna be losing a couple of players next year too, by the look of it. So 3 or 4 guys to rugby union. They keep on saying Angus, like either Buzz Rothfield's running out of stuff to write, so he's just pulling stuff out of the air, or these things are going to legit happen. So we'll see what happens. As I said, the Eels, they lost. So did they play at Parramatta last night, that game, or did they play somewhere else?
No, it was a double header at Cogra Oval. So the Eels and Raiders was the first game, and then the Charity Shield between the Rabbitohs and the Dragons, which the Rabbitohs won 28 points to 6, was played after that.
Yeah, so the Raiders beat the Eels 38-16. Rabbitohs beat the Dragons 28 points to 6. So the Dragons are going to come last. So if you can bet on them to come last, bet on them to come last. So that's my hot tip there. West Tigers beat the Warriors there. Unfortunately, it's not going to make a massive difference to their season, I don't think. They will do a little bit better. So, someone's got to take their place if they go up much higher up the comp. The good news is the Sharks are trying very hard to get down there. The Cowboys, they lost 46-20 against the Broncos. So it's only a trial, so it's a little bit hard to gauge. But I would be moderately concerned if I was the Cowboys fans because I haven't seen them make significant changes to their team for this year, and a bit concerned they might have another flat year next year. Although Jason Taumalolo is now not the captain for this season coming up.
Yeah, that's right. They've changed captains. They've got co-captains now, Ruben Cotter and Tom Dearden. So, look, as you mentioned before, trials are difficult to get a gauge on because, the star players don't necessarily play the whole game or don't play at all. So there are a lot of youth in these sides that are running around at the moment. New South Wales Cup players, SG ball players. So getting that exposure to first grade. So a lot of that, and that's what they are. They're trials. So it's hard to get a gauge on. The Broncos, they had a sprinkling of superstars on today. Ezra Mam didn't play, but Adam Reynolds, Pat Carrigan, Reece Walsh, Payne Haas, they played first. It's played in quarters in most of these games, so they played 20 minutes. Some played 40 minutes. So it's very hard. It's just more about fitness, I think, and welcoming the new players into each side.
Yeah, so Adam Reynolds and Pat Carrigan, they're trying to get in WWE at the moment too with their little performance the other day. So maybe they're hoping they get their opportunity to show what they can do when they're over in Las Vegas next week. So
look, a credit to the Broncos as well because they got on the front foot and there was a press conference, I think, the next day as well between Adam and Pat, and they spoke about that they were more embarrassed about is what's gone on. And look, the Broncos, they got onto the front foot and nailed it. So sometimes you see these things happen and like a week or two later an apology will come out or whatever, but they got on the front foot. I think they probably would want to have done that before they got on the plane next week to Vegas, so get it all sorted, done and dusted.
Yeah, it's definitely the way forward, I think, to sort that out. So they've done the right thing now. And in the last trial game, 76 minutes in, the Dolphins are up 26-14 against Des Hasler's team there. So we'll see how that goes. I keep hearing noise around Fafita at the moment. David Fafita is trying to get out of his contract or something at Gold Coast. So I'm not hearing it from Gold Coast or seeing it in Brisbane media. It's Sydney media. I think they're really disappointed that the preseason was pretty boring this year. No one did anything really stupid. So they're looking for things to write about because they're trying to fire up something. I don't think there's anything there, right? And I think David Fafita will give it a good run. He has got a year option in his favour. But I'm pretty sure Des Hasler will show why he should stay at the club. I think that Gold Coast are pretty good and they're either just going to make the top 8 or just miss the top 8. So like 8th or 9th, that sort of level of position this year. So I think the Dolphins will finish about the same as they did. So I don't think they're going to go much higher than about 12th or 13th for whatever they finish. I just think they're going to fall about that level again, unfortunately for them. The big sliders, I'm expecting 100%. I think the Sharks, I think they're probably going to drop a bit. Cowboys, a bit hard to gauge where they're at, but yeah, get your money on the Dragons to get the spoon. So they're nearly rock solid certainties. I heard someone say, "Oh, they look like they're going to win the premiership." Like, please, they're not going to win the premiership.
So you're going to have Dragons. So listeners, you're going to have the Dragons listeners and Roosters listeners ring in and
Sharks fans, the Hobbits from the Shire are going to get in touch with me as well. 0434 440 553. Don't forget the number and don't forget the name.
Don't mention Parramatta fans, mate. They'll definitely get on the blower and give it to you.
Yeah, 100%. So, no, I think Parramatta will do all right. So they're either just going to... There's a couple of sides that are going to be like that this year. I think Canberra like that as well. They're either going to sort of just make it into the 8 or just miss the 8. I think it's going to be very close in the comp again. But I also think it'll be probably tight down the very bottom end of the comp with a couple of sides there. Like, seriously, the Dragons and Tigers, I can't see the massive significant changes they've made this year to their side. So interested to see how they're going to turn things around. And I'd like to see what Stephen Crichton can do when he's at the Bulldogs as well. So we'll see how that all goes and see how Ryan Pappenhausen's recovery goes and what he can do at the Storm, because before he got injured, I think at the time he had like some point scoring records for the first time in about 50 years, miles ahead of anybody else, and was looking like he was going to probably clean it up. Then hurt his knee, and that hurt the Storm season and everything. So that really gave the ball back to Penrith, and we'll see how he goes and recovers from that. When he came back last year, he hurt himself.
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting what they do down in Melbourne. Obviously, they've got Ryan Pappenhausen there. I think you'll find Nick Meaney might maybe move to the centre position, possibly, but he can play fullback as well, and Sua Fa'alongo as well, the excitement machine. People want to see him get that fullback role as well. So, going to be interesting. I think probably you would give it to Paps at the moment, obviously being the long-standing fullback there, and he's got the runs on the board, so you give him probably first crack, but you've got a great fullback in waiting as well.
Yeah, so did you hear what Brian Fletcher said the other day? Penrith CEO he actually said North should align themselves with someone, and Penrith have given up that many players. We could help fill your squad up, and you can fund it, and we'll keep the players, and we'll play under that banner. Like, what? What was that? What? You want to get all the Penrith players that we're having to let go to like North Sydney? So we're going to call it Penrith / North Sydney / whatever, Adelaide Rams, Bears or something like that. Like, I don't know what's going on.
And probably play out of Perth or something.
Oh, yeah, why not? Yeah, why stop the stupidity? Let's keep it all going non-stop. So I was thinking sometimes those guys need to stay out of it. Like, it's not his particular scope. I know he thinks because Penrith won like 3 comps in a row now, he can say whatever he wants and everyone's going to listen. But realistically, he came from horse racing, so you should probably leave it up to the people that know rugby league and let's see what they think about everything that's going on.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's a lot of talk as well last week that the Bears would come back into the NRL as the 18th team. There was talk a few weeks ago that PNG were probably favourites to come in, but I think the Bears is probably a better option and maybe base them out of Perth, perhaps.
Yeah, that could be a good option as well, actually, for them. That might be a handy little fit.
Obviously play a couple of games at North Sydney Oval just for nostalgia, and it could be like the West Tigers and have 4 home grounds, but obviously play a couple of games at North Sydney Oval, but basically base themselves out of Perth.
Yeah, I think that's probably a solid way to go about it. They just got to have like a right strategy. If they go the wrong way about this, they're going to bugger it up. So Norths are not going to get as many games they want. They probably I would stick to 2 a year. Like if you could get 12 home games or whatever, you want 10 at wherever you're going to be based in a couple of ways. So, which would be in North Sydney, and that would be a positive way forward. All right, so just seeing the whole Andrew Walker thing you got on the Parakeet podcast at the moment. What do you got coming up this week, Troy? Yeah,
so continuing on with the Paul Taylor interview, that's currently out. Andrew helped me out with an Indigenous All Stars, or the Harvey Norman All Stars preview. So he gave a list of a few of his favourite players that he played with, Indigenous players that he played with, and also growing up. I'll have a replay of this chat come out as well. I'll also have a interview with Mark Geyer that I did a couple of weeks ago come out next week as well, so looking forward to bringing that one out. A great chat with MG. He's a great bloke. He actually came to the Parakeet to do the interview, so I really appreciate that. And I've also got another show in the works as well, another podcast in the works as well with another podcaster, George from the Quick Hands podcast as well. So a bit of a look on, it's a bit of a talk show on rugby league. So looking to bring that out possibly next week or the week after as well. Yeah, there you go. Cool. That sounds really good. Troy, thanks for your time tonight. Like I said, let's go away and work on these all-star lists again. Yep. So with non-representative players. So 2 scopes, 86 to 2000 and 2000 to 2010. So same criteria, except we can't pick anyone we've previously picked and can't pick rep players. So okay. And we'll see what sort of teams we come up with then. Not a problem. Look forward to it. And, it's going to be challenging once again. But, thank you for the chat. And enjoy your week and enjoy your footy next week as well. And we'll chat next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. So I'll catch you again on Friday night.
Thanks, Duckman.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.